Happy Sunday. Welcome back into the Arkansas Football Recruiting Report with Otis Kirk. As always, that's Otis Kirk. I'm Evan Kamiko. Otis, we've got a ton to talk about today, not only with the Razorbacks falling to Memphis 32-31 yesterday. We'll get to that in a little bit, but let's start the high school football recruiting ranks as we always do, and specifically Javon Gilmer, quarterback. We had him on the show just a couple of months ago. Was a really great kid, really energetic, was really looking forward to being a Hog. Ends up going to high school, losing out on this quarterback position, and then ultimately decommitting from the Razorbacks. What do you got on him? What do you make of this whole situation?
When Arkansas, when he quit school, Arkansas decided just to move on, and they got with Javon, they got with him, and just it was a mutual decision. I know rivals came out and say he decommitted, but it was a mutual decision. He had no choice. I mean, Arkansas decided to move on. There's some red flags. And look, I'm gonna say this before I say anything else about last. I mean, every time I called that kid, which wasn't often, but when I called him, super nice. Answered the phone. It's official visit. I talked to him. Super nice. So and then came on the show as you said, super nice. So he treated me great. I'm not, and I honestly, you and I were talking before on it. I questioned the fact that they replaced him with the transfer quarterback. They were 10-2 last year. They're 1-2 when he quit school. They'd lost as many games in 3 as they did all year with him starting quarterback. His coach retired and they promoted an assistant coach, and things weren't going well for him. So I'm not against the kid, but there were some red flags, and Arkansas decided to move on. Yeah, it's just an unfortunate situation because now Arkansas is kind of against the 8 ball. What do you do? And we'll get into that too about replacing him because you really need a quarterback in this class because this is Taylor's last year.
Yeah.
But and I've got some ideas on what they can do with that, but we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, it's just an unfortunate situation for the kid now. And those red flags are not limited to art. So schools are going to look at that when they go to recruiting. They're going to look at the fact he was suspended a game last year for pushing a coach. He quit school. He got, you might say, beat out this year. It's just a lot of unfortunate situations for him, and I don't think they were all fair. But one thing, Evan, we were talking on here, and Arkansas went from 2 Gilmores, which is unusual, committed to class, to no Gilmores almost overnight.
Yeah.
I mean, Gilmore. I don't know if there's even been a Gilmore playing Arkansas, and they had 2 in this class, and all of a sudden now they have none. So, if you want to predict, if you'd have been wanting to predict who was going to be the first one to get out of the class, and I know there's been others, but the last 2, you said the Gilmores, you won money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bryce went to Texas Tech. That was a big loss. He went to Texas Tech. Jayvon is still in the air, but it's unfortunate. But it's one thing. The thing of it is, KJ Jackson is pretty well established where he can come in and start next year. So if they don't get a starting caliber quarterback, it's not the end of the world for a change because they do have KJ. But it's just so late in the game for Gilmore. Signing day is early December. He's already taken an official visit here. Arkansas's counted on him for over a year. So it puts both of them. He and the Razorbacks behind the 8 ball a little bit, but it's part of life and it's part of recruiting. They moved on, and
well, I will say there is one name that comes to mind, and I think any Arkansas high school football fans should probably come to mind. I think we're going to talk about him in just a second. That is Kane Archer, the Greenwood sensation, which is really fun to watch again. I'm sure we're going to bring him up in just a second, but I saw fans Otis online being like, "Oh, Gilmore decommitted because of all this Hunter Yurachek stuff earlier this week," and I'm like, "Yeah, I think that's a little bit of a stretch, even though, we could have our own opinions and have a whole other podcast on all of that Hunter Yurachek stuff another time, another place. But
right.
Like when with Gilmore and the Hogs quarterback room right now, like you mentioned, Talon is gone. You also have Grayson Wilson. Do the Hogs necessarily, are they going to put all their resources into it? Who knows what's going to happen with the quarterback room? Curious for you. Where do you see kind of Arkansas now going from here?
Okay. There's 5 high school quarterbacks that I've got a list of that I know they've offered at one time or another. Some of it's committable offers, some wasn't. Obviously, I felt like they should have taken. Look, I've been on this bandwagon. I've said on this show, I've written this story. They should have offered Kane. I mean, they should have taken Kane Archer when he wanted to come because. And that was not saying they shouldn't have taken Gilmore. I would have taken both. They took 2 last year. I would take, really they took 3 counting Trevor Jackson. So, I mean, you had Kane Archer and Javon Gilmore and then let the best one win, but they didn't, and I don't they can go back on Kane, but I don't think he would take it now. Here's the deal. They've got two options. They can go for a high school kid. There's some out there. There's some available that are somewhat but very available. It's not maybe not so available, but there are kids out there right now in recruiting. Or they could do what Ole Miss did, go get a kid out of the portal. No, and you that kid went to Ole Miss thinking, Simmons is going to be the starting quarterback. But he was very experienced, had a lot of talent, and he was willing to take that chance. And Arkansas could do that. I know Sam said earlier they weren't going to the portal, but you got to remember that was when they had Jayvon Gilmore.
Yeah.
But I think they could go to the portal and get a kid that would come in and compete with KJ, knowing that he's probably not going to win the job. But hey, injuries happen at quarterback, so anything can happen. You could do that route. Or you can full-fledged go after a portal quarterback and say, hey, the job's open. I don't see them doing that. But I like what Ole Miss did with the kid that beat Arkansas down there. So you could do that, or you could go for one of the high school kids. And there are some available. I mean, do you want to go in this segment or the next one, Evan?
We're good. We're rolling. Let's keep talking about them.
Okay, so kids they've offered, and Jackson Presley comes to mind from Montana. He came for an unofficial visit. To Arkansas. He got offered, and then they moved. And he's committed to Sacramento State right now. But he lived in Oklahoma for a while. I think all these are 3-star quarterbacks. But he's 6'2", 195. I know they liked him, and and so he's in Montana right now. But he's got ties down here. So that would be one they could look at. Grant Smith is out of Spring Grant Oaks in Texas. Good God, that's
that's a tongue twister right there.
6'4", 205 for Grant Smith. He isn't committed to anyone that I'm aware of right now. He is ranked about the same spot that Kane is, which I think Kane's vastly underrated by the services. But that, as you said about that, that's a story for another day. But Grant Smith, 6'3.5", 6'4", 205 from Spring Grand Oaks in Texas. So Grand Oaks High School in Spring, Texas, down near Houston. That kid's pretty good. I liked him. I thought at one point that might be the one they got in this class, but he came up and visited a time or two. And then Wyatt Brown is from Sherman Oaks, California, Notre Dame High School. 6'2", 185. That's kind of a trend here. Other than Grant, most of these are 6'2" range. And I know Bobby likes taller quarterback, but and then I'll tell you an interesting one that I'm looking at is Case Evans out of Lexington, Texas. He's committed to Oklahoma State, but I watched a lot of that game Friday night. It's Friday night when Oklahoma State hosted Tulsa, and Tulsa beat them. And so I don't know if Gundy's going to be there or not, but Case Evans is an interesting name. Now, one thing I will say, I'm not aware of Arkansas offered him at any point, even before he committed to Oklahoma State. The rest of these kids all had offers. Like I said, some maybe committable, non-committable, whatever. They had offered. Now, Case is one that I can't see an offer. I can't find where he was ever offered Arkansas. But he's 6'2", 198, got pretty good size. He's committed to Oklahoma State, and he's a good quarterback in Lexington, Texas. So, I think there's a pretty good chance that Gundy may not make it. Of course, I know they'll turn around and say I'm going to make it. So I don't know, but we're not here to judge that. But that's one that I'd keep an eye on that Case Evans because he's committed to Oklahoma State, and I think he'll be on the table for it's all said and done. Which there'll be some others too. That's the thing right now. There's a lot of kids committed to schools, but as coaches change and all this, and kids just decommit, and things happen. Look at Jayvon Gilmore a month ago. Nobody predicted he'd be on the open table. So things happen in recruiting. Recruiting is crazy, and it gets crazier every year. And there's and quarterback is just a weird position because most schools like to take one in each class. If you can get one that you like in each class, then if you keep them out of the portal, it works out pretty good. Where they'll usually start around a couple of years, and then they'll redshirt, then back up, and then play a little bit, and maybe share it, and then start a couple of years. That's the perfect scenario where you always have a pecking order, but seldom works out that way because of the transfer portal. But it is an interesting position. Schools don't really like to take two in the class, but I would love to have seen them taking Kane Archer, and I know I'm beating a dead horse there because they didn't, but I said it was a mistake at the time, and I'll stay with it. And yes, he's not the tallest quarterback on the earth, but he is one thing, and surely God, Arkansas fans can relate to this. Kane, if nothing else, Kane Archer is a winner.
Mm-hmm.
And how good is that word to say winner? Because I mean, he finds ways to win ball games. Greenwood's been on the ropes a couple of games this season. 2 games already. I've been Bill West, maybe in Springdale Harbor, I believe, were the games, but they've been on the ropes. And Kane, just like that Northside game last year, Kane pulls it out of and the kid's undefeated in high school. I mean, how many times? And we're talking about from the 9th grade on, he's undefeated. And so, he's a winner. And I think that's one thing Arkansas, and every position, you might take an offensive tackle, and they don't really matter if his team's been undefeated every year or lost most of their games. You judge individual talent, but I think a quarterback is a completely different position, Evan. I think you recruit winners. I think they make plays to find ways to win ball games. And and now they got to have some help. Taylor's found some ways to win ball games lately, and they didn't win them, but it wasn't on Taylor. But I'm just saying. So I'm certainly not directing that at Taylor. I mean, he didn't fumble.
We'll get there, Otis. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
He didn't miss tackles and all this. So he threw the interception, but those didn't beat Arkansas. Yeah. But anyway, I just think right now they could go 1 or 2 routes. They'll take a high school quarterback, and there could be somebody else, maybe somebody's committed to another school that looked at this and says, "Hey, chance to play for Bobby Petrino. Look what he's done with Taylor Green. Look what he's done with Tyler Wilson. Look what he did with Mitchell. I mean, Lamar Jackson, in other quarterbacks. I mean, so Bob, when you mention Bobby Petrino, if you're a quarterback, sure you want to play. I mean, why would you not want to play for that guy? So I think that's one thing that's out there. They may even get on somebody that right now maybe ain't on the radar. It's committed to another school or something. That wouldn't surprise me. But I do think one option would be to go to the transfer portal, get a kid that you think probably not going to beat out KJ Jackson, and that's fine. But somebody that if KJ got hurt, he could come in and you wouldn't miss a whole lot there. Yeah, that's what happened to Ole Miss. Look, I mean, they lost the Simmons kid, and their backup comes in, beats Arkansas, and they're not missing a beat with him at quarterback. Maybe play him better. And so that would be a good route for Arkansas to try to go. Now, I know saying that and wanting those and then finding somebody like that is 2 different things. You may want it, it's like I may want $1 million, but getting it's a different story. But I do think it's possible, and if you overturn, but with Bobby Petrino, I think it's very possible because I think he could. I think people can draw to Bobby as a quarter. If you're a quarterback and you can't relate to Bobby Petrino, there's something wrong with you, man. I'll just be honest with you. There's something wrong with you because that guy, there's not a better quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, whatever you want to call it. All of it, all of the above out there with Bobby Petrino.
Yeah, but a lot of questions with Petrino in this Arkansas offense after only scoring 3 points in the second half against Memphis. Again, we'll get into all of that, but to put about Trinidad Chambliss, that could be the route that you go. Like you've mentioned, he looked fantastic yesterday against Tulane when Ole Miss absolutely beat down the Green Wave, and I was surprised. I thought Tulane was going to be much better, and maybe Chambliss took advantage of a really bad Arkansas defense. Again, we'll get there. We'll talk about the defense in just a minute. But yeah, you're right. That could be the route that the Razorbacks could go. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back on the Arkansas Football Recruiting Report, we're talking about that loss to Memphis. Stick around. We'll be right back after this. Back here on the Arkansas Football Recruiting Report, Otis Kirk and Evan Kamiko hanging out with you on this Sunday. Otis, let's talk about this Arkansas loss. It's 2 weeks in a row, right? History doesn't repeat. It rhymes. Last week, it was Jaylen Brown with a costly fumble. This week, it's Mike Washington Jr. inside the 10, fumbled the ball. Arkansas looked like they were going to avoid the upset. They don't do it. But there's a lot more than just these problems with the offense fumbling the ball late, right? We got to look at the defensive side. Travis Williams' defense has been, and I think it's safe to say, atrocious this year. We saw signs of it against Alabama A&M after that first drive where you're like, we could have some problems here. This defense might not be very good. And luckily, when you're playing A-State and you're playing Alabama A&M, where the offenses aren't as high-powered. And even Memphis yesterday, like Brendan Lewis missed a lot of easy passes for even more points. What's your most concerning? What's the biggest red flag right now with the defense?
Just the tackling for one thing, Evan. They can't tackle a lick. I mean, you got 3rd and 8 there at the end of the game, and if Arkansas forces them to punt, you've got a chance with Scott to kick a field goal and win. But no, he drags a 400-pound. Not stressing a little bit, but not that much. He drags a 400-pound defensive tackle.
I think Intrafraud is 395.
Right. He drags that kid.
Yeah.
9 yards. Good God, you got to grab that guy and do a back. I mean, throw him on his back, And it wasn't just that play. There was time after time yesterday that I watched Memphis players be tackled, even on one of those touchdowns. They had the guy tackled at maybe the 3, and he drug them into the end zone. They're not throwing them back; they're letting them go forward when they fall, and it's killing them. I mean, they killed them on that first down, and they got a touchdown that way. I mean, they probably scored anyway if they had tackled them at the 2, but but yeah, the defense is just they just, at least yesterday, they weren't completely lost on receivers. I mean, Ole Miss, there was a couple times Ole Miss scored when nobody was even no defensive back even in the vicinity of this guy. But there was a couple times where Lewis did miss open receivers. But I thought Arkansas got a really bad call on the offensive pass. I mean, on the pass interference. I thought that was offensive pass interference on Julian Neal. Julian made it up that interception, but I felt like he got screwed pretty good on that on that pass interference. The kid got both hands. Somebody said, "Well, he didn't turn around and look back." Look, man, he got pushed.
Yeah, but and as much as we want to sit here and say, "Well, that changed the game," right? It's a one-score game. Sam Pittman now 7-19 in one-score games. The fact of the matter is, like, that was in the first half. You can't allow that to affect you later in the game. That shouldn't have been the reason why Arkansas lost this game. Obviously, it wasn't. But I do think, to your point, right, that's a big momentum swing right there. You're looking to go into halftime up 28-10, all the momentum on your side. You just scored. Your defense finally starting to get a couple stops, and then the OPI happens. And it was the crumble effect from there, right? We saw that. Memphis rushed for, I'm reading this right, 294 yards against the Razorbacks in that game. Yeah. And Sutton Smith had his way, 147 yards. Brendan Lewis, they couldn't stop the RPO. And it was the same thing we saw with Trinidad Chambliss. Now, with Lewis, it was a little bit less consistent than Trinidad Chambliss was, and maybe a little bit more downhill rather than east to west. But still, the tackling, to your point, Otis, there were so many times where I'm clipping the game here in the studio going, oh, 15-yard run because X person missed the tackle. Oh, what is going on with Xavier Story? It's a hamstring. We know that. Sam Pittman confirmed that after the game. He's having some problems again with it. It affected him in fall camp. It's affecting him again now, but that can't be an excuse and a reason why you don't tackle and you don't wrap up. There were times where, especially on the Lewis touchdown, where Story just tried to put his shoulder into him and went right into the end zone for a touchdown. And you kept seeing these small things add up. And it's why we're sitting here. This team should be 4-0. This offense scored 31 points in this game. You would think the defense can get a couple more stops, but here we are. Instead of 4-0 going into Notre Dame, a big week this week, you're 2-2. You're searching for stuff. Fans want Sam Pittman's head. And there's no direction right now for this team, it feels like. There is no identity on defense. And really, there's no identity on offense outside of Taylor Green.
What bothers me as much as anything, Arkansas has lost 2 games this year, and they've lost them the same exact way they lost last year. People laugh. When I picked them to go 8-4 last year, people laugh. Look, they could go 8-4. They maybe could have won 9 games. They should have beaten Oklahoma State. They lose. If they don't lose the turnover battle, this team wins most of the games, Evan, and they're losing turnover battle. And the sad thing is, it's the exact thing that happened last year. Yeah, Ole Miss kicked their butts last year. Okay, I'll give you that. Yeah. LSU. But even that game was 16-10.
It was a bad turnover by Taylor Green that cost them that game and flipped the momentum. Continue. Yeah. Sorry. It's just, I feel for Hog fans. Like, it's enraging that you're seeing the same mistakes over and over and over again with this team.
It makes you wonder about the coaching when you can't fix what is broken. And we're just watching a replay of last year where they lost games that they very easily could have won. They could have easily won 8 games last year. Oklahoma State, they had to really try to lose that game. I mean, they had to really mess up to lose that game. And they in all honesty, they probably should be 4-0, and that's with a bad defense this year. But you can't. Okay, one thing but Mike Washington should have had both hands on the ball. Yep. When you're inside the 10-yard line, you're just. You probably didn't even need to score. You don't want to score there because that would give them almost a minute and a half to come down and beat you. Put both hands on the ball because they're going to be trying to strip the ball. It's the only chance they've got, and they're going to come after it, and they did. You don't need second effort like right there. Just put both hands on the ball, get what you get, and then go down. And just don't fumble because that's the only way that Memphis was going to get was going to win it if Arkansas turned it over right there, and they did. But the sad part is, I'm sitting here last week, and I'm watching the game, covering the game, and I'm thinking, just don't make a turnover about that time Jaylen Brown turned. Same thing yesterday, but
Yeah.
it's getting where it's almost expected. You're certainly not surprised by it. And I think that's one thing that's got fans so upset is it's not like they're getting, I think honestly, they're watching the same thing that happened last year, and it's like, why can you not fix turnovers? Why can you not fix that? Limit that? You're losing games the same way you lost last year. It's like, does somebody not have a clue how to stop this? I mean, nothing else. Teach ball protection, and I know they work on it over there, but something's not working.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to look at how you're working on it. I know Sam will say tomorrow they're working on ball security. Okay, fine, but it's not working.
Yeah.
Now, so I mean, why can you not fix that? It's just frustrating. It's frustrating to Arkansas fans, and they're just losing games that honestly they shouldn't be losing. And we can talk about all this other stuff, but they just win the turnover battle. Man, I don't think people be nearly as sad as or mad as they are right now about the team, because I think they would have won 8 or 9 games last year, and I think they'd be 4-0 right now. And then you got a whole different atmosphere out there. It's a whole different feeling, whole different. There's always going to be somebody mad because they didn't win 50-0. So that's fine. I mean, you got those people, and that's fine. But I think the majority of people, common sense, would look at it and say, hey, they ain't been perfect. The defense is struggling, but they're 4-0. They overcame that.
And really Yeah, and
Go
really
ahead,
the
I'm sorry.
turnover battle is it's 3-2, but it really should have been 3-1 because you had Memphis basically hand Arkansas the ball on the trick play that completely backfired on them. So the fact that it was as close as it is a little misleading because you basically got a free turnover in the game with that horrible trick play that went a little viral, which was funny. But it's the inability, to your point, like how can they fix that at practice? We see them. The first thing I remember seeing at fall camp this year was protecting the football, having them try to punch the ball out and doing ball security drills. And now we're seeing it come back. Like, what else differently can you do, to your point? But Otis, before we wrap up, let's talk a little bit about Notre Dame, a big game coming up this weekend. Arkansas, you're 2-2. Look, I do think that if you're 3-2 at the end of December, oh my God, I don't know what month it is. At the end of September, you're in good shape, right? That's where you thought you would be. Worst case scenario. Well, best case scenario, probably. How do they beat the Irish?
Well, I will say this. Notre Dame doesn't have a good defense either, folks. I think if Arkansas, I'm saying this, I'm saying this, but you go into the game, you don't turn the ball over. Guess what? Those magic words. You don't turn the ball over against that defense because they're not very good on defense. Go in there and don't turn the ball over. Yeah, Notre Dame's going to have success on offense. They're going to.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have success against this defense. But you go in there and don't turn the ball over. Play a solid game, make them beat you, and I think Arkansas's got a chance. But the magic words, don't turn the ball over. And why do we think that's going to start in game 5 when it hasn't in the last 2? So it's not that simple, but really it is. I'd love to see Arkansas go out there Saturday against Notre Dame and play a clean game.
Yeah.
Now, stop the penalties. They had some terrible penalties. And one or two of them was the holding call on the receiver was questionable. The pass interference was definitely questionable. But look, you're going to have some bad calls. But they usually go both ways, although I didn't see it yesterday. But eliminate the big play, the penalties that cause plays to be called back.
Yeah.
Eliminate those and eliminate the turnovers. And see what happens. Notre Dame may win anyway. They probably will. They probably will win anyway. But you go out there and you don't have a bunch of silly penalties. You don't turn the ball over. I think they can play with Notre Dame. I think they can. I'm not saying they'll beat them, and I'm just saying if they do all that. But honestly, is there any hope that they're going to do that when they haven't yet? I mean, but that defense is not very good for Notre Dame. The offense will score some points Saturday. But that's where Arkansas's got to match them and score a few more. And just, anything can happen. When you get in a shootout or running, battle shootout, anything can happen. And they've gotten kind of a shootout the last 2 weekends. And had they not had the turnovers, they would have probably won both those shootouts, even with the defense playing like it did. And so I'd say that, Evan, just go out there and play a clean game, cut out most of the turnover, or cut out all the turnovers, cut out most of the penalties. And give yourself a chance. I'm not going to say and tell you I think they'd win the game if they did it, but give you a chance. And that's all right now. I think people will be happy with that. Just give a chance to see what happens. Arkansas could win, they might not, but at least they give themselves a chance. Because right now they're shooting themselves in the foot, and it's so familiar because we watched this show last year unfold.
Absolutely. Otis, the great thing about college football, the saying goes, any given Saturday, anything can happen. That is going to do it for the Arkansas Football Recruiting Report. For Otis Kirk, I'm Evan Camico. We'll see you back here next Sunday.